What's going on, guys? Today I wanted to bring you another one of my 2014 WCQ hat format deck profiles. The deck I wanted to show off today is Wind Up Hands. This is one of probably 2 or 3 different versions of Wind Up that you can actually play in hat format, though I will say that Wind Up is kind of in a rough spot during hat formats, given that Wind Up Magician is at 1 and Carrier was banned at this point, so I would definitely say this is more of a rogue or fun deck option. The other 2 versions of this deck are probably equally in the rogue option, and that would be, say, like the Wind Up Artifact build and the more aggro pure build. But I've been showing off a lot of the artifact builds of decks lately, so I figured I'd show off the hand version of this deck. It's really cool and it's a ton of fun to play. I know personally Wind Up Insector Dino Rabbit format was a very fun format for me back in 2012, and so I figured why not show it off in hat format as well. So hopefully you guys are interested in wind-ups as well. Obviously, if you click this video, you are, and let's get straight into it. So the one thing to note with wind-ups are most of their effects are once while face up on the field. No, that is not once per turn like most cards, it's simply once. It'll make a little more sense though once we actually get into it, hopefully, but let's actually get started on the profile. So starting off, we obviously play the 1 copy of Wind Up Magician. This is one of the best cards to see in your opener if you pair it with the card that I'll be showing off next. And what this one does is, if effect of a Wind Up monster is activated, you can special summon a level 4 or lower Wind Up monster from your deck in face-up defense position, and then you can only use that effect once while it's on the field. So if it leaves the field and bring it back, you can use it again. So in theory, it is a soft once per turn, but only once while on the field. A key thing to note with this is it just says if the effect of a wind-up monster is activated, you can use that effect, but the effect doesn't need to resolve. So if your opponent breakthrough skills or the effect, say, of one of your other monsters is Fiendish Chained and you can still attempt to activate the effect, you can still get the trigger off of that. Now, the best card to pair with this is one of your 3 copies of Wind Up Shark. This one has the effect that when a Wind Up monster is normal or special summoned to your side of the field, you can special summon this card from your hand. Now, one thing to note is that special summoning effect is not once per turn, so if you have multiple and you summon multiple Wind Ups, you can keep summoning them, and then this one breaks the once while face up on the field rule, because this one has the effect that once per turn, you can activate one of the effects and either increase or decrease its level by 1 until the end phase, I should say. After that, 3 copies of Wind Up Rabbit. This is one of your key cards that, for setup purposes, you want to see very early on. It's also just a very annoying card for your opponent to deal with, and what it does is, during either player's turn, you can target a Wind Up monster you control that includes itself and banish it until your next standby phase, and then again back to only once while face up on the field. But, you know, if it's leaving the field, then when it comes back, it kind of redoes that effect. This is a really cool card because it dodges a lot of opponents' back row. For example, Torrential Tribute, Mirror Force, D-Prison, etc. Just a very good card to keep some sort of board presence, and even if need be, you can use this effect to banish your other wind-ups so that they can reset their effects, which is really nice. Another thing with this is it returns during the standby phase. It does not special summon. So if you use this effect and then say later on your opponent flips Vanity's Emptiness, during the standby phase you will still get your monster back because it's not considered a special summon. After that, 2 copies of Wind Up Rat. It might seem weird seeing only 2 instead of a lot of people wanting to play 3. Part of the reason is because this card is extremely searchable in this deck, as is all the wind-up monsters, and you don't really have a benefit of opening this card too much, especially once we see like the rest of the monsters we're playing. There's a lot of normal summons, so you can kind of get to this card whenever you want, and it's not really great to see in your opening hand. I've played, a couple different builds where I have tried playing 3, and I just didn't like it. What this one does is during your main phase, you target a wind-up monster in your graveyard, change this card to defense position, and special summon that monster face up in defense position, and again, only once while face up on the field, but again, it's basically soft once per turn, so if you have multiple, you can use multiple. After that, the last wind-up monster is one copy of Wind-Up Warrior. This is used for your OTK, and it has a pretty neat effect that you can target a wind-up monster you control and increase its level by 1, and it'll gain 600 attack. Again, only once while face up on the field, but this means that you can turn your level 4s into 5s, your 3s into 4s, and so on and so forth. So it is a very good card, and being a Earth warrior is very important when we get into the extra deck. After that, we play some hands, obviously. I'm playing 3 copies of Fire Hand and 2 copies of Ice Hand. I know this is different from my personal ratios that I prefer of 2 and 2, and it's not quite 3 and 3, but 3 and 2 actually isn't the most uncommon ratio in certain decks. And the reason we're playing 3 and 2 is because if you're gonna see one of the hands, in most matchups you want to see the Fire Hand first, because all decks are really affected mostly by monsters, whereas some decks play very little back row, so Ice Hand isn't as relevant. And there's also ways to, put these back in deck, so it's completely fine playing this ratio. Again, these help you break the boards of your opponent. Fire Hand, obviously, when it's destroyed by opponent's monster or card effect, you can pop a monster your opponent controls and special in Ice Hand, and Ice Hand is the opposite but for spell and traps. And so, yeah, you really just kind of run these out first while you collect pieces for your wind-up combos, and then you can kind of push for OTKs with your wind-ups. After that, just 3 more monsters, 3 copies of Max C. The reason you play this is just because card advantage is really important in this deck. You want to see as many pieces of your windups as possible, so this is just a way to get to those, as well as slow down the combo decks. For example, against Infernity, Dragon Rulers, getting multiple draws is really good, especially when, like I said, you can kind of run out the hands, break their board, and then on your following turn, do your wind-up plays. So, very important card. Moving on to the spells, we have 3 copies of Wind Up Factory. This has a really great effect of once per turn. If an effect of a wind-up monster is activated, you can add a level 4 lower wind-up monster from your deck to your hand. So this is basically your Rhoda for the deck, and what's cool about this is it's once per turn per copy. So if you have 2 of them and activate 1 wind-up effect, you will be able to get 2 searches. And the other thing is if you have the wind-up rabbit that can activate during either player's turn, if you use it on the opponent's turn, say you activate one of your own wind-ups on your turn, and you get searches, and then you use the rabbit on the opponent's turn, you can get more searches. It's really important to find this early on, and same with your rabbit, as I mentioned before. After that, 2 copies of Fire Formation Tenki. We're only playing 2 because the only target for this is Rabbit, and while it is important to see Rabbit, you don't want to see too many where the rest of your hand is dead, so that's why we play that. 2 copies of Pot of Duality. You're not really special summoning a whole lot on your first turn, though if you're going second and you see hands, you probably want to try to run those out. So it's not necessary that you use this, but first turn, if you're going first, usually this is a very good card to have. 2 copies of Soul Charge, just because this deck does need follow-up, and 1 is too little in this deck, and 3 is just way too much, so I think 2 is the perfect amount. 2 copies of Forbidden Lance, because playing into back row can be a little rough in this deck, especially when you're trying to OTK your opponent, so having protection from cards like Breakthrough Skill, Fiendish, and all those other cards I mentioned before is very good. 1 copy of Mind Control. This deck plays, level 3s, 4s, and 5s, so this is good against almost any deck, so that's why we play that. And 1 pot of Dichotomy to shuffle back 3 monsters with different types, and then you're able to draw 2 cards, but you can't conduct your battle phase that turn. All your monsters are different types from one another, so this card is almost always live no matter what you see, so that's pretty cool. And that's all the spells. For the traps, we play 3 copies of Fiendish Chain. We play Fiendish Chain over Breakthrough Skill simply because one, it's a way to bait opponents' back row removal so that your factory can stay on board, which is really good. And also, you don't really want your monsters getting destroyed by battle with opponents attacking monsters, so stopping the attacks is very good as well. After that, 2 copies of Trap Stun. This paired with your lances basically guarantees that your opponent's back row aren't going to do anything. So very good, especially again, since you can OTK. Usually for the OTK, you just need like Factory, Shark, and Magician, or there's other combinations of just seeing a couple different cards. After that, just the basic staple 4 of 1 Bottomless, 1 Compulse, 1 Torrential, and 1 Solemn Warning to round out the main deck. For the extra deck, we play 1 Gaia Dragon. This works really cool with the 1 copy of Mind Control if your opponent's on, say, artifacts or something, and you can take one of their rank 5s and use this. If not, we also play rank 5s, which are 1 copy of Tiras. I just wanted a good rank 5 if I'm not pushing for an OTK, and that can play through back row. 1 Volcasaurus to help you do some damage. It also works good with the Gaia Dragon to then put the Gaia Dragon over it after you've burnt for damage. And the last 5 is 1 Shark Fortress that you can make a monster attack twice. This is used for the OTK. For the 4s, we play 1 Karen Gorgon. This card's really good because it redirects targeting. And so if your opponent, say, tries to MST your factory or your Fiendish Chains, you can make it, pop other back row. So this card is really, really important. It's also a bit of a beater since it does have 2,450 attack, which is nice. 1 copy of Photon Papillolative to switch a defense position monster to attack position and then decrease its attack. This is used in your OTK as well, switching your rat to attack after it's summoned off of your magician. So very good card. 1 Black Ship of Corn. I was debating on playing Black Ship or Heartland Draco, and I went with Black Ship, though you could definitely swap that out for Heartland Draco or Gaga Cowboy. I just thought this was the most versatile. 1 copy of Silent Honor Arc, 1 Exciton, 1 Dweller, and then the last rank 4 is 1 copy of Rhapsody in Berserk. Because we're not main decking crows, it's good to have a pseudo crow. Also, being able to equip it to your Xyz can help you push for game, which is nice. After that, a couple rank 3s. We play 1 Alucard to pop set cards. It helps against the Geargia matchup and just back row. 1 copy of Levier. This could honestly be swapped out, but it kind of works nice if your opponent, say, DD crows one of your monsters you're trying to bring back off of Rat, or there's times where you Rabbit, banish your Magician, and then if you want to summon back the Magician on the same turn, you can go for this and keep going. 1 copy of Mequip Engineer, just a very good card to kind of stall out for a little bit. And lastly, 1 copy of MX Saber Invoker. This is the card that I said is the reason that we are playing the Wind Up Warrior, because you can make this and get Wind Up Warrior out of deck, and it helps with your OTK. But that is it for this deck profile. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did and want to see the other builds, definitely let me know in the comments section, and definitely drop a like on this video. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell to get notified anytime I put a new video out. Share this video with your friends. Always, trying to respond to comments and listen to the ideas that you guys want for videos. So again, let me know in the comments section. And anyways, guys, I will see you in the next video.